Hola! Bienvenidos back to Mexico Relocation Guide. I'm so excited to share a video that many of you have been asking for. When you move to a new country, it's important to know how easy it is to get the things that you need every day. Grocery shopping in Mexico might feel similar to what you're used to. However, it will probably be quite different. That's why we're here to give you a simple guide to help you understand where to buy groceries, household goods, cleaning products, and organic plant-based and gluten-free products in Mexico. We'll cover the basics so you can get a good idea of what shopping here is like. But remember that every city and town has its own way of doing things. We're also going to compare prices amongst the products that you're seeing listed on the screen, which we think are some of the most common household goods that most of you at home buy. Let's get right into it. When I say buy local, I mean buy from small producers. You know, these are family-owned corner stores, farmers markets, flea markets, artisans, and local entrepreneurs. I highly encourage everyone who watches my videos to frequent these places. There are many reasons why I recommend doing your groceries at locally owned businesses, mainly because you're getting fresh, high-quality produce with much fewer additives and pesticides, but you also save money and you help the local producers instead of the bigger corporations. So that doesn't sound so wild, right? Let's review the most common options in Mexico. Let's do it on a scale. So let's start with the largest, the local mercados. In Mexico, mercados are basically the equivalent of a farmer's market. Now, they're usually followed by the name of the neighborhood where they are located. In this country, there's a solid cultural root to these markets, and in many towns, they thrive even more than the big supermarkets. In developed urban areas, these local markets represent not only a tradition for Mexican families, but are sometimes the most accessible in terms of distance and price. These markets have no standard size since they're usually built around community needs. So the bigger the city, obviously the bigger the market. Whenever you shop at a mercado, you'll be able to find most fruits and vegetables that are in season. If you want to purchase beef, pork, chicken, some of the best options are found at your local carniceria. These are butcher shops and are found in every city of Mexico. Sometimes one of these can sell you all three types of meat, most consumed in Mexico, and sometimes they only sell chicken, in which case it is called a polleria. Fish and other seafood can also be found in these markets. Look for the word pescaderia. Cremerias is where you'll find cheese, eggs, bread, ham, hot dogs, chorizo, pork chops, and cold cuts. You should know that cold cuts and cheese differ significantly in Mexico from the United States and Canada and even Europe. You see, Mexico produces delicious cheese. There are over 40 types of cheese in Mexico, ranging from fresh and light to very rich and melting cheeses. However, when it comes to cold cuts, your best bet is to find them at grocery stores or specialized stores. Sometimes you'll see them at carnicerias, and they'll say something like cortes gourmet or premium. It's in those where you can find specific cuts and imported meat. However, these are not super common since cold cuts are not a regular staple of a Mexican diet. These are the main things that you'll always find in these mercados. However, mercados vary a lot from one city to another, so keep in mind that some of these are very large and you'll be able to find these things I mentioned, and a lot more. Some are very basic and you'll only be able to find very basic foods and maybe household items. Now, to give you an idea of what you can find at your local mercado, we visited two different markets in Querétaro, Mercado del Tepe and Mercado de la Cruz. The mission was to find everything on our list. Both are among the largest, most frequented, and iconic markets in Querétaro. El Tepe has 121 stands selling different items, while La Cruz has 594, significantly bigger. However, on a national scale, these would still be considered small or medium-sized markets. When you're at a mercado this size, you can truly find everything you need to fulfill all your basic needs, from food to clothing and even furniture. Now, we were able to find all the items on our list and more. As far as quality goes, everything we found is pretty good quality. Fruits and vegetables are as fresh as they get, big and juicy. The meat is also fresh and less processed. And buying in these places gives you a nice and warm sense of community that you don't find in supermarkets. The people are warm and kindly answered all of our questions. So you get the idea. A fruit vendor gave us Free mangoes as we could taste them before buying them. They really are going to try to sell you their produce. We were able to find a few imported items and products like cheddar cheese, some imported sausages, and cold cuts. Now, besides food, everything else is possible to find here. You can find things like shoes, clothing, school and office supplies, cleaning products, kitchenware, pets, supplies, and the list goes on. It's just a matter of adjusting your standards. Instead of looking for the big name brands, you can try the local brands and even the knockoffs. At the end of the day, they both serve the same purpose, and there's going to be some trial and error. Here you have everything we were able to find with prices at these local mercados. Now remember, do not take this as the ultimate price list for all of Mexico. Keep in mind that we visited 2 markets in the same city. However, I hope it helps you to give you an idea of what the estimated fair market prices are. Now, regardless of the city, town, or market, there are a few unspoken ground rules for these mercados. There's a curious dynamic where outside the actual mercado, there are a lot of stores selling the same items, and sometimes brands, that you would find inside the market. So you could say the whole market is made up of the actual building with all the stands plus all the stores on the outside. And this is very common throughout the country, especially in the larger mercados. But here's a pro tip. The prices outside the market could differ significantly from the prices inside the market. For example, inside El Tepe, we found a kilo or 2 pounds of onions for about 35 pesos. While at a stand outside that was also selling onions, we found that the price was 8 pesos for the same amount of onions. Sometimes it can be the other way around, and you may find better prices inside the market. So the pro tip is to shop around. Now, once inside the market, you'll find that there's no standard price for the items. One vendor can be selling a kilo of apples for 45 pesos, while the next stand can sell it for 37 pesos, and so on and so forth. And some vendors will have a price tag and some others won't. So this forces you to interact with the vendors to get your stuff, but will also be well informed on more or less what the fair price of these items is. You'll have more awareness to it. And yes, many of these prices can rise depending on many factors. For example, if a specific crop is scarce, if it's not in season, this could cause the price to go up. But it's important for you to know at least the estimated average and keep up to date with this information. That way you avoid getting overcharged. Now, another thing, because there's no price tag and the vendor quotes the price as you ask them or pick up the produce, this creates a window for the vendor to take advantage and overcharge you if they recognize that, one, you don't know the price, you're a foreigner, and all those things, right? And while we don't condone or justify it, the vendors are just trying to make the most out of each patron. Now, we're not looking to point any fingers or blame anyone. All we are trying to say is that in order for you to avoid this, it's recommendable for you to be well informed and have a good idea of what you should be paying for groceries when you go to these markets. Now, I wouldn't advise confronting or exposing a vendor if you feel that you're being overcharged. This would be considered rude in Mexico, even if you're being overcharged. As you shop more and more, you'll be aware of who is overcharging versus what vendor isn't. So my best advice is if you are being overcharged, just don't shop there anymore. Also, bargaining in mercados is not common and would be considered rude. There are some markets like Tianguis, bazaars, where you could bargain, and we'll cover that later on in this video. Now, in these permanent markets, nobody asks for a discount and definitely does not bargain. It's also not customary to give tips or to overpay. Very important for you to make a note of that. Pay the exact amount quoted as long as you know it's the fair market price. Which brings me to my next point. It's very important for you to have cash, as 90% of the vendors won't take debit or credit cards, and it's really important for you to have small change. By now, you would probably thinking that you might need some Spanish to do all of these things, and the answer is yes. It would be rare to find a bilingual vendor, maybe in places like Puerto Vallarta, Chapala, Los Cabos, the kind of cities where vendors are used to a lot of foreigners. But if you're not in a heavily expated populated place, you won't find bilingual vendors easily. In the meantime, we recommend using Google Translate to help you communicate if you don't know anybody in town that can help you translate. And a bonus is that most likely when you practice your Spanish in these markets, the vendor's behavior will likely change so you won't get overcharged. So don't be afraid to practice your Español. Everyone has got to start somewhere. If your Espanol is not there yet, we suggest getting a translator. When you arrive, try to mingle with your neighbors. It's easy to make Mexican friends, believe me. You can ask these new friends to come with you to help you with your groceries. Having a local on your side will also help a lot with the overcharging situation while you become aware of what the true cost of things are. Another pro tip of shopping at markets is that the produce here contains fewer pesticides. It's not organic, but it has fewer preservatives and additives. That means that the produce you get here goes bad sooner than the one that you would be getting at supermarkets. In fact, most locals do their grocery shopping at markets every 2 to 3 days. So you'll want to get as much as you can for this period of time. But we wouldn't suggest buying a lot in bulk. Buy enough for a 3-day period, maybe a 5-day period, if you really want to avoid going 2 times in the same week. Now, some other things to note about Mercados is that Mexico in general uses a metric system, so you must order everything in kilograms. Now, for folks watching us from the USA, we highly recommend getting the Unit Plus app for your phone, and it's not sponsored. I'll leave a link in the description of this video. Now, having all of your shopping options in a single market is not that common unless you live in one of Mexico's major cities. Another point is that the more rural a town is, the more difficult it is to bring a wide variety of exotic or imported products to that local municipality. Fruits and vegetables are available depending on the region that you're in. And the prices also depend on the region that you're in. Consider it, right? How long they have to be transported. Tropical fruits might be more expensive in highland cities and vice versa. Now, let's get into another important local shopping experience, which is your local tianguis. Now, a tianguis is very similar to a mercado. The biggest difference is that a tianguis is a pop-up market that are held on specific days of the week. So usually, one neighborhood might have a tianguis on a Monday, and, every week on Monday there's a pop-up market that lasts for a few hours, and they take everything down for the end of the day, and then again next week. So trust me, once you start exploring your new home in Mexico, you'll likely be walking down the road and see a few streets closed, lots of stands, the smell of delicious street food, people yelling to attract customers, and loud music. And now you know you have found your neighborhood tianguis. People love going to their local tianguis. It's a way of life in Mexico. These are usually great places to eat. Some of the best street food in Mexico is found in your local tianguis. You can also find produce, dairy, meats, and then some household items. Tianguis is usually open early in the morning around 8 or 9 a.m. and closes or shuts down by the afternoon around 3 p.m. There are also evening tianguis, which would open around 5 p.m. and then will stay open around 9 to 10 p.m. You'll always find a little bit of everything in these places. Some things like electronics, toys, clothes, secondhand items, antiques, jewelry, and, of course, food. Logically, the bigger the tianguis, the wider the variety. They are also great places to find little trinkets or something particular that artisans from your local municipality or your local town might have. These aren't usually found on Google Maps or Yelp. To learn the location and schedule of a tianguis, you have to come across it or ask your neighbors and friends about it. Or sometimes you can find them on forums like TripAdvisor, or if you have a group on Facebook or something like that where people share that kind of information. Now, while traveling around the Bajío region, we visited a tianguis in 3 different cities. As usual, we were greeted with a nice smell of garnachas, which are tasty street snacks, some cumbia, which is a type of Mexican music, and the calling of many vendors around us. Now, in a tianguis, or really in a market in Mexico, you'll hear the word güero a lot, which means blondie. But it's not offensive. It is just a way to get someone's attention. Here, you're also forced to interact with each vendor. Some of them will have price tags, but in many cases, you'll have to ask ¿cuánto cuesta?, which means how much is it? And then start an interaction. Now, we were able to find all the items on our list. However, don't expect a wide variety of brands. In most cases, don't expect brands at all. If you're looking for oatmeal, seeds, rice, beans, those kinds of things, you'll ask for them, and then the vendor will hand you a plastic bag with the amount that you asked for with no label. The same applies to dairy, meats, and produce. If you want bacon or cheese or anything, you will ask for the amount, and then they will weigh it for you, give you a bag, hand it to you, and you will have no label on it. So that's how it works at a tianguis. Now, don't be thrown off by meat and fish sitting out. These are stands that are usually fresh and clean. Now, I understand that if you're not used to it, it can seem like the whole method is unsanitary. And well, yes, it might take your stomach a while to adjust to some Mexican bacteria and the overall diet, but this will happen regardless of where you buy your groceries. So here's a list of all the things we were able to find at the Tianguis that we visited. Now, here are some ground rules in Tianguis that are pretty similar to those in Mercados. However, there's a few differences. These are not tourist attractions, and most people here are either working or trying to get their weekly supplies. So just consider it's a public space. You can use your camera, but try to not be invasive. Now, we asked permission from vendors to get close-ups of their produce, and nobody said no, but having the courtesy always goes a long way. In fact, I would say that's just a common courtesy anywhere in the world. And if they say no, respect it and move away. It most likely has to do with the fact that her work is unique and is just trying to protect it. The pricing and negotiating dynamic changes a little here than at markets. Food is always non-negotiable, so don't bargain for it. You simply don't negotiate the price of produce, dairy, meats, or even cooked food. If you go to the Tianguis for some tacos, you pay the price quoted. However, some artisans or clothing shops will offer discounts or be more open to negotiating. Not all of them though, and it's better to wait to see if they start the negotiation. I know bargaining is considered a thing of Mexican culture, but I'm here to tell you that it's mostly a thing of the past. New generations are changing this bargaining dynamic, especially when it comes to handcrafts and artisan products. Some other vendors will immediately offer you a discount, especially if they see you browsing and being kind of indecisive. They'll hit you right away with, hey, give me X amount and it's yours. When this happens, then you can take the discount, but again, if they have already offered you a discount because they saw you thinking about it, asking for an additional discount would be considered rude. In a tianguis, cash is king, even more so than in Mercados. You see, in Mercados, you can find vendors or stands that take cards because they set up daily. But in a tianguis, it'll be very rare to find someone who does. So bring cash in pesos and extra points if you bring a handful of coins and smaller bills. Now, these places are safe, but as in any flea market in any part of the world, be mindful of the steps you take. Don't be flashing your money or any valuable object. Be discreet. Try to blend in with the crowd as much as you can. Carry as much money as you think that you'll actually spend. A bag to carry the stuff that you buy, and your cell phone if it's necessary. And of course, be aware of your surroundings. Avoid bringing more stuff than you need, not only because of the safety reasons, but because depending on the tianguis size, you could be walking and browsing for a few hours. So it's better to get in your comfy clothes and not carry more weight than necessary. If you truly want to become a frequent customer of a tianguis, we highly recommend coming with a local Mexican friend first. They can help you with the language. They can also teach you the ins and outs. Eventually, the vendors will recognize your face and you'll become a part of their community. Once you're a part of any community in Mexico, nobody will overcharge you. And in some cases, they'll give you better prices. Or if you're short a few pesos, they'll just let it go. Community is first in Mexico, and we all help each other out whenever we can. Now, one more local shopping option is to go to the famous Tienditas, which are small stores that have pretty much everything you would need between grocery trips. In most traditional neighborhoods in Mexico, you'll find all kinds of locally owned convenience stores to supply your pantry and your house. These are fruterias, carnicerias, cremerias, and then of course, you will find also just tienditas or tienda de abarrotes that have a variety of different products. Think of these as like convenience stores. These are also sometimes called miscelánea, or they have other names. Sometimes they're just called the name of the store owner. Now, usually they don't have a big sign or, they're not very fancy. They're usually just, they have a sign painted on the wall and, it's a very simple store where you can just get some things in between shopping trips. Here you'll find essential products and snacks, sometimes fruits, medicine, shampoo, toothpaste, canned products, cigarettes, and other small items. Newer neighborhoods with larger homes and green spaces tend to be far away from these kind of convenience stores. So while you have more privacy and less noise in these newer suburbs, you'll also have fewer conveniences within walking distance. If you live further away from any of these amenities, then most likely you will need a car. If you're on a strict diet looking for a bigger or more specific tool or brand, or frankly, the quality you find in these little stores probably won't satisfy you, then that's when you will need to go to a regular big box supermarket. For specialized diets, you'll likely have to seek out even specific stores like organic stores, gluten-free stores, or vegan shops through Google Maps. Now, pro tip, Google Maps and Waze work very much like they do in your home country. So if you're curious to know what stores or shops are around you, I recommend doing a quick Google search to help you determine if a specific neighborhood has the type of stores that you want or need. Some pro tips for these smaller stores or specialized stores are basically the same as any part of the world. In Mexican tienditas or specialty stores, there won't likely be a price tag on the items. If you need to know the price before buying it, you'll most likely need to ask the clerk. Bargaining is completely off the table. So remember, it's a corner store, not a flea market. These are usually family-owned businesses, so you'll most likely see many different faces as clerks. Sometimes you'll see the mom, the father, sometimes the kids, or maybe even the granny. Eventually, you'll meet the whole family and they'll recognize your face too. This creates a very homey feeling and it'll give you that sense of community. So now that you have a really good overview of what it's like for you to do your shopping from local supermarkets or local mercados, tianguis, tienditas, and those kinds of shops, let's get into big box supermarkets and chain stores. Now, because we're a neighbor to the United States, it's no surprise that you'll find chains like Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, Home Depot, Petco, 7-Eleven, and H-E-B. However, Mexico also has some of its own chains, such as Chedraui, Soriana, La Comer, City Market, Bodega Aurrera, Oxxo, just to name a few. There's many more other chains. And these offer a variety of products that will be almost the same as in any supermarket of your home country. What makes them different? Well, let's just say that, like in the US, there are some supermarkets that are considered to be more upscale or even on the higher end, and some are designed for more working class families. Whatever the case might be ready to come across some brands that you've probably never seen before. Also, you'll notice that there are small warning signs on some products. These are called sellos. These tell you if a product exceeds the recommended amount of calories, sugars, sodiums, fats, those kinds of things. The more sellos, or these warning signs that you see on the package, the more unhealthy that product is. You'll find a wider variety of imported products in the upscale or fancy supermarkets. These are H-E-B, City Market, Costco, Fresco, and Chedraui Selecto. Walmart, Soriana, Chedraui, and Bodega Aurrera are targeted at working class families. There will still be imported products, but there will probably be a smaller selection. Now, we visited both types of supermarkets, and to be honest, the experience was almost identical, just a few exceptions. At your typical supermarket, everything is organized by sections and aisles, and this formula applies to all of them, regardless of the location or regardless of what clientele they're targeting. Some will be newer, more modern, have a wider selection of products and brands, but other than that, there's really not much difference. In fancy supermarkets like H-E-B, you'll find the widest selection of imported and gourmet products, as well as more organic or plant-based products. But you have to keep in mind that H-E-B is not found across Mexico. One of the main differences is the amount of stock you'll see. So sometimes like supermarkets like H-E-B, Costco, or City Market are usually fully stocked, or at the very least, they try to be fully stocked. Remember, these chains are not widely available in all Mexican cities. Usually, the bigger the city, the more of these supermarkets that you'll find. These also tend to be more expensive, and sometimes a lot more expensive. City Market, for example, is one of the most expensive supermarkets in all of Mexico. Even if you're getting the same brands, prices usually are more expensive. H-E-B is also considered expensive by Mexican standards. Overall, it was at least 30% more expensive than shopping at a local mercado. Costco, well, it's Costco. You come here to buy in bulk, which could make it cheaper in the long run, especially if you have a family. It was definitely more expensive than Mercados, but we found a lot of imported products at Costco. Now, the Mexican chains were pretty much the same. As I mentioned, the main difference is a variety of brands and products. And other than that, you're looking at the same standards for supermarkets. The produce is pretty similar. Whether or not things are stocked is pretty similar, but it's usually a difference of brands and products. Maybe the fancier ones will have better infrastructure and overall it'll look prettier. They will be cleaner. Some of them will have amenities inside like cafes or a nicer bakery and those kinds of things. But I promise that unless it's a gourmet brand, the products will taste the same. Anyway, in Chedraui and Soriana, finding imported products is trickier. Usually these supermarkets have a special alley or section that says something like gourmet or importados, which means imported. Once again, keep in mind that the selection will be smaller than at some of the more upscale supermarkets. Now, some pro tips for shopping at supermarkets in Mexico. Regardless of the type of supermarket you go to, whether it's fancy or more regular, now finding bilingual staff is not going to be common. Cashiers and general staff are not fluent in English. So we recommend writing your grocery list in both English and Spanish. That way you can always point to the product or produce and practice saying the words in Espanol. Also, be patient. I recommend making your shopping trips on a weekday, if possible, before noon and before the quincena, which is the 15th and the 30th of each month. Quincena is payday in Mexico. So this is when people get their paychecks, and it's well known that supermarkets get very crowded. Also, keep in mind that the culture in Mexico is not as fast-paced as you're used to back home, so be patient. One of Mexico's beauties is that this is a relaxed society. People are not always rushing and stressed about being productive all the time, so just embrace it and go with the flow. You'll also notice that there will be an older person packing your groceries. And these are usually called cerillos or cerillitos. They work as volunteers and most of their income is based on tips from the customer. There's no fixed amount to tip them. However, we recommend giving them 10 to 20 pesos. Sometimes they may be able to break a larger bill, but not usually, so we recommend bringing change. You also need to bring your own plastic bag or disposable bag or whatever bag you're using for your groceries. Mexico has laws against plastic bags, and although they are not enforced at all markets and local stores, supermarkets usually do abide by them. So no plastic or paper bags. You may need to get a few reusable bags that you can usually buy from the supermarket. And once you get 2 or 3 or more, however you need, you won't need any more. Just always remember to bring them or you'll end up with 20 bags in your home, like me. And you should also tip the person who helped you park your car if you drove to the grocery store. You can tip them 5 to 10 pesos. If you aren't bringing a car to Mexico, don't worry. Most grocery stores have dozens of taxis waiting outside to take people home. Just make sure you ask for the fare before getting in. If you have been following our channel, you know that I am a huge advocate of shopping at local markets and tianguis because of the savings, the freshness, the experience, and of course because you're making the biggest impact to the local economy. But we understand that you also have to do what's in your best interest. And most likely, in your first few months in Mexico, you'll probably shop mostly at big box supermarkets because you're familiar with the ingredients and the experience, and because usually there might be one closer to you. After a few months or exploring your surroundings, you'll likely discover the local Mercado and the local Tianguis that catch your eye. Now, don't be afraid to explore. Mexicanos are very patient and very helpful. If you don't know something, don't hesitate to pull your Google Translate out to help yourself. There's no shame in the learning curve. In any case, even Mercado lovers have to create kind of a hybrid grocery shopping routine. There are a few products and items that you won't find at market, especially if you're into plant-based food or organic foods. For instance, vegan milk, almond milk, cashew milk, oat milk, those kinds of things are totally unavailable at Mercados, at least at the ones that we visited. They may be more available in larger markets like Mexico City or Guadalajara, but if you live in a smaller town or even in a smaller city, you won't find many options for plant-based, gluten-free, or organic products there. Finding specific products for strict diets or imported brands will be easier at big box supermarkets. I guess it's all about finding a balance between adapting yourself to the culture and the flavors without sacrificing your particular needs and, of course, getting the most for your buck. And with time and practice, you will be soon shopping like a local. Now, real quick, I'm going to interrupt this video because I know that if you've been doing a lot of research on moving to Mexico, I know it can be confusing to know where to get started. That's why we created our Move to Mexico cheat sheets. We made a couple of helpful, quick guides to help you get started with your list of must-knows before your move to Mexico. For example, you'll know how to qualify for a residency visa and the best way to apply for one, how to find the best rentals in Mexico like a local would, what are the most common mistakes that new expats make, what is the real cost of living in Mexico, which are current examples from real people. So sign up to get these helpful quick guides. I'll leave a link in the comments down below. Okay, now let's get into shopping for things like organic and plant-based foods. So first of all, you should know that the vegan and organic culture is a work of progress, which is curious considering that most of Mexico's traditional dishes are vegetarian or even vegan. But even then, finding organic or vegan produce or products on shelves is a bit harder. I said that in Mercados, produce will have fewer pesticides and you might find some organic products like honey and self-care products, but most of these are not usually 100% organic. Supermarkets are usually the first choice for essential plant-based and organic products. However, the variety could be a bit limited in terms of brands and items. Of course, produce like, vegetables and fruits are widely available and, in my opinion, are way tastier than anything that you would find north of the border. Now, fortunately, there is a growing culture of organic markets and small, medium-sized specialized stores focusing on this specific market. Just be mindful that these special needs stores or specialized stores are more available in larger cities. Finding these products will be very unlikely if you aim for a little traditional rural town in Mexico. For instance, cities like Mexico City, Guadalajara, Puerto Vallarta, and those kinds of places are vegan paradises. There are a ton of organic markets and restaurants in these cities. But they are also some of the largest cities in the country, or of course some of the cities like Puerto Vallarta where, there's a lot of expats living there, people who usually bring these kinds of cultures to Mexico. Specialty food shops are mostly found where there are large populations or a lot of expats. You can find all types of shops selling natural supplements, gluten-free bakeries, self-care products, plant-based meat and cheeses, and even things for your pets that might be plant-based. However, they are usually found in the higher-end neighborhoods or, of course, in the trendier areas. You might get lucky and find a strip mall in one particular city in Mexico with several organic stores, but this isn't the norm. Instead, you'll likely spend a few hours driving to more than one neighborhood to get your stuff. Another thing to consider is that any imported specialty or organic food must be transported from one state to another or usually even transported from another country, which considerably raises the price. This applies equally to unique items or imported products across Mexico. It doesn't matter. Let's just say that you want to find an Asian or Italian market. Whether or not one exists near you will depend on which city you live in. Now, we visited several organic stores throughout 4 cities, mainly in central Mexico. Our goal was to find all the same items on our grocery list, but this time we were looking for plant-based, vegan, organic, and those kinds of products. Just so you know which cities we're talking about, these were Querétaro, San Miguel de Allende, Guanajuato, and Guadalajara. As I mentioned before, Guadalajara is vegan paradise. It was by far the best city for things like organic, vegan, plant-based, and specialty stores. Although it's the second largest city in Mexico, so it makes sense that it has a wider variety of options. Querétaro also has a good variety, but it's also kind of a big city. San Miguel de Allende, on the other hand, is a small town, but it's very touristic and has a large foreign community, so we also found several of these shops. And Guanajuato had the fewest. Anyway, to find all the products on the list in one store was pretty much impossible. So if you're not a brand snob or just want a healthier product than the mainstream brands offer, I would say that going to places like H-E-B, Costco, City Market are your best bet. They always have a very good selection of some vegan products, organic produce, and organic products as well as a variety of brands. We found organic fruits and vegetables, plant-based meats, and other organic or gluten-free options like, of course, tofu, certain cereals, certain milks, and those kinds of things. However, if you have a preferred brand or you just want more personal attention, then you should probably find out what specialty stores are in and around your neighborhood. The experience changes a lot, especially in terms of attention. In more than 2 stores, we had the clerk explaining to us where they get their products or how they make them, what are the benefits of consuming them, if there are some recommendations as to which time of the day or how often to consume a particular product, how to cook it, pretty much all you need to know before making the purchase. Now that's definitely a nice and warm shopping experience. You can see that they are passionate and knowledgeable about the things that they're selling, the topic, and it gives you a lot of confidence in buying from them. So that's something that you're gonna find at a specialty store that you probably won't find at a supermarket. If you find a specialty store that you really like, we recommend that you collect their business card. Most of these producers take orders and even do home deliveries. So if you're out of money at the time, or you simply don't have or don't need their product at that particular moment, or maybe they're across town, or for whatever reason you just want them to deliver to your home, we really recommend that you find out if they do home deliveries. Another pro tip of shopping for specialty products or food in Mexico is that if you find the product that you're looking for, we really recommend buying a few extras because you never know if it'll be in stock again. So in a way, consuming organic, vegan, or plant-based is a privilege in Mexico. The prices in the areas where these stores and markets are usually not designed for the working class people. So something for you to keep in mind. So tell me, did you learn something new about grocery shopping in Mexico? Let me know in the comments down below. The team and I at Mexico Relocation Guide genuinely hope that you now have a good grasp of your shopping culture and know what to expect when buying groceries once you move to Mexico. But if you want more insider knowledge of a specific topic, a specific city in Mexico, check out our website, mexicorelocationguide.com, and use the search feature to look up information on whatever topic it is that you're interested in. Chances are we have an extensive article on it, and chances are we have a video on the topic. So follow this icon and go and search on our website, mexicorelocationguide.com. So this is where I say, not adios, but hasta luego. I will see you guys all in the next video. Nos vemos.